Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
A new adult urban fantasy book series that features gender issues, diverse characters, LGBT themes, plus a new twist on Greek mythology. Today on Rainbow Country, Eyes of the Eternal, the debut novel from author G.E. White. That and more on episode 296, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Carol Pope.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Segato.
Hi, I'm Gord Depp with the Spoons. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada. From coast to coast to coast, the Yukon, British Columbia, the prairies in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, the Maritimes in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a number one LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's number 2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So, today, Eyes of the Eternal, the debut novel from author G.E. White, an adult urban fantasy novel where the main character, Quinn, is a young man with a female spirit, diverse characters, LGBT themes, and a new twist on Greek mythology. Plus, author G.E. White will treat us to some readings from Eyes of the Eternal. Plus, in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some British 80s, some Canadian 80s, as well as a spotlight on queer spoken word artist, the Mengfather, Bobcats. But at first, my Big Brother Canada coverage continues with the most recent Evicted Houseguest.
I have the results. By a unanimous vote. Herman, I'm sorry. You've been evicted from the Big Brother Canada house. Please get your things and say your goodbyes.
Herman, first and foremost, congrats on making it onto Big Brother Canada Season 10. How are you feeling?
Good. This is a once in a lifetime situation experience, and I couldn't be happier, to be honest with you.
So, Herman, you just got evicted from the Big Brother Canada house. How are you coping right now?
I'm good. It's a surreal experience. I really didn't expect to be in jury. That was an absolute twist. But yeah, I'm good. I feel good. I'm just happy that I get to still be a part of the decision on who wins.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that vote. Unanimous. Did that surprise you?
Not really. Like, it was going to either be like it was either going to be a 5-2 or a 7-0. So it was that big of a swing either way. I didn't think I'd get a 4-3. I think everyone's wanting to be on the same page moving forward and not be caught on the wrong side of the vote. So I think when there was a little bit of doubt with Josh and Summer, the rest just kind of followed.
You were backdoored by Marty.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think Marty saw you as such a threat to his game?
That's the $1 million question. I think that, in an effort to gain trust, I let him in on some of my plans for week 6 if I won, and that included Kevin and Helena as possible targets. And I think I didn't realize how closely he was working with them, and that was threatening to his game. I think that was a big part of it. Plus, I kept telling him how big of a competitor I was. I slapped him around in that POV when I beat him in week 5. So, I think those were all threats.
You also talked about keeping Marty safe in week 7. Had you stayed in the game this week, would you have kept Marty safe this week during week 7?
Oh, yeah. I would have kept Marty safe from the front door, not the back door.
So you campaigned.
He got me before I got him.
You campaigned, Herman, this week, yet here we are. Was there anything more you could have done to stay in the game?
Honestly, I think this week, I don't think there was anything more this week. I could have maybe gone to Marty and not been so secure in our 1-week deal. I could have really fished and tried to, work with him on options with the POV, but he hit me with the, kick your feet up, and that's basically your ticket out of here when Marty tells you that. So, like, shouts out Steph. The kick your feet up line is an absolute sign of death. So, yeah, I could have done more with Marty.
Did you have a strategy going into the game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to win the first HOH. I won that. So, strategy out the window. But I wanted to win it week 2 or week 3. I wanted to have a showmance roughly around week 2, start something there. Kind of started percolating with Steph a little bit, but, it just, yeah, once I won the first HOH, I basically was like big alliance, try and rock that out to the end. That blew up week 3. It was just restart week 4. And I was like, Kate, just find a final 2 and try and ride that, just be loyal to the soil with one person. But I think Marty was able to sprinkle enough doubt from our earlier workings that made people second guess anything I had built week 4 onward.
You did win the very first HOH. You were part of a large alliance, the Savage 7. Where do you think everything went wrong?
I'm not sure. Did you get a chance to watch week 3? Had a menace running the house. Kyle the Menace, absolutely running the house rampant. I had the 7. I had the retreat. I had the 4 with the boys for 4 days. Like, all of that absolutely imploded. And week 4, I'm sitting there, the dust settled, and I'm looking around like, what the heck am I going to do now?
Looking back over your gameplay, was there anything more you think you could have done?
Yeah, so I think week 4, after, things went belly up, I would have made more of an effort with T, Summer, Josh, Betty, and maybe even Helena to reinforce my loyalty to that side. I was saying a lot and my actions were supporting that, but they still saw me hanging out with, other people. And I could have been more forthcoming with some of the stuff I was doing earlier in the game. I just thought that stuff was dead and gone. But once it came back up later in the game, it started to cause doubt. And here we are in a 7-0 backdoor.
You are the first member of jury on season 10 of Big Brother Canada. What are you looking for when it comes to gameplay when you help to crown the winner?
Yeah. I would love to know strategy. What strategy they implemented, if they pivoted in their initial strategy. I want to know actual game moves. I'd love a good gamer, and I need to know that you've got some game moves under your belt, whether it's winning or just influence. And loyalty is important to me. That's just how I was raised. So you gotta have some type of loyalty in this game for me to consider you, worthy of the crown.
Was playing Big Brother Canada, was this harder than you thought it would be?
Yeah, it was harder than I thought. I really thought I would just go into every competition and crush it. And I mean, your boy was 2 for 7. You do the math. I'm not that good at math, but you do the math. 2 for 7 is not bad. And I just thought I would just be able to just crush the HOHs. And the problem was I never got spun ever for a POV. So I was like, I'm not actually getting to play in these comps. So it was harder than I thought. And yeah, it's not as easy as it looks on TV, kids.
Who do you think is playing the best game so far?
I think it's the toss-up between Summer and the Showmans. Like, Summers hasn't had to get any blood on her hands at all, but has been influential in some of these decisions behind closed doors. And the Showmans is just a non-threatening, lovable, 2-person, 2-vote powerhouse. And Gino can win, Jace can win. They both got W's under their belt. Someone's going to have to take a shot soon.
And my last question for you, best part about being part of Big Brother Canada season 10.
Thank you. The best part was, obviously getting to meet all the different types of people. I learned a lot about myself and just getting to play. Really, the best part I think would be just getting to play all the games. I am a kid at heart, and testing myself and throwing a hoop over a red light, green light pole. Come on, that's the dream. Or running around in a winner's store and trying to stack a water bottle on a peg. That's the stuff dreams are made of. I'm like, I can do this. And the pole's heavy. You don't realize how heavy it is. And you're just sweating, but you're just standing. That's just that's bliss.
Herman, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Big Brother Canada airs on Global TV Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Check your local listings for airtimes.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, author of the new adult urban fantasy series, G.E. White, kicks off our interview with a reading from Eyes of the Eternal.
Quinn sighed. I'm just starting to think this might be the best place for me. Why? Because that stupid fairy out there keeps making faces at you? Serena's eyes were covered by the sunglasses, but Quinn could hear the amusement in her voice. He whirled around to face her, his eyes wide as hope welled within his chest. You can see her? Serena sneered. Of course I can see her. And if she knows what's good for her, she'll beat it before I come out there and rip her wings off, she said, directing the comment to the tiny figure outside. The crimson-haired fairy on the other side of the glass squeaked in indignation and stuck her tongue out at the woman before flying off. Quinn gaped at Serena in disbelief as she glared after the fleeing figure. Yeah, get out of here, Red, she called out after they were treating Faye. Whimsical ass little bitches. Man, I hate those things. You've seen them before? She nodded. They're not overly common in the second realm, but they usually hang around places like this. People here are more likely to see them and interact with them, but obviously they won't be believed if they talk about them. Quinn noted that the way Serena spoke about the strange and fantastic creatures seemed similar to an exterminator giving a consultation on household pests. Just who was this woman? Is this where you tell me I'm a wizard? Because I gotta say, you're like 9 years too late with my Hogwarts letter. Quinn couldn't help the snarky tone that escaped his lips. It seemed like all his interactions were determined to further undermine his sanity. Why not roll with it?
G.E. White, hi, how are you?
I am doing lovely. And yourself?
I am well. I always say this, and I'm saying it to you. Thank you for being here to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. Okay, first and foremost, first question, hard-hitting question, G.E. White. G.E., what does that stand for?
So yeah, GE, so it actually stands for my actual name, which is Jillian Elizabeth. I mean, first and middle, that is. Now, when I was like getting ready to publish my book and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to go by my actual name, Jillian White, but there already is a Jillian White author out there. So I was like, what can I do, you know? So I ended up like just deciding I really need to like, find something a bit different. Plus, there was a part of me, I think, that was like a little bit worried about like being fully out there. But as time has gone on, I'm quite happy with like people knowing that, yeah, it's Jillian Elizabeth. They can know I'm a woman. It's all good.
So Eyes of the Eternal, this is your debut novel, a new adult urban fantasy. Talk to me about the tale that you're telling in this debut novel of yours, Eyes of the Eternal. What's the tale that you're telling?
So it's kind of a bit twofold. And the main concept is that Greek gods and goddesses have been kind of cursed with mortality in the sense of they are basically having to be reborn over and over and over again. They live, they serve, they die, and then they start again. So we have this kind of romanticized idea, I guess, of soulmates. And I really wanted to like get that all out there. So right now we are dealing with our main character, who is the reincarnation of Athena. Now, the other thing I really wanted to kind of get into with this was the idea of, gender not really being a huge barrier. A lot of these characters, they are born into bodies that usually they aren't associated with. So our main character is male, but is the reincarnation of Athena. So, we have this kind of a bit of conflict within him where he's like, well, I feel male, but here I am associated with, being female. Is that a bad thing? Is that something that people are, expecting something of me? And it's basically a lot about, coming into one's own, embracing everything about yourself. So with that, there's a lot of adventure as he is kind of brought into this world of reincarnated gods and goddesses and has to take his place among them. And of course, we have, some mystery, some danger, a little bit of romance, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited to, tell this story because it was so much fun to be able to have to explore a lot of different characters and especially to explore mythology in this particular way. I am a huge nerd about mythology. So, getting to kind of look at some of the gods and goddesses that aren't as focused upon. We have Thanatos, who is the god of death. And when I say that, I mean kind of like the Grim Reaper, while Hades, who is, better known, is the god of the underworld. Does all the administration stuff and so on. But that, and also, dealing with characters who are kind of very much kind of caught between two worlds, where we have one of our characters, Serena. She is both, she's part Gorgon, but she is also a demigod of Artemis. So we've got like some interesting concepts of duality going on there.
Mm. So this is a new adult urban fantasy. You have diverse characters. You have LGBT themes. There's a new twist on Greek mythology. LGBT themes. Why did you want to tackle this particular genre, so to speak, in Eyes of the Eternal? Why LGBT themes specifically?
So, for the longest time, whenever I try to write either, more heteronormative characters, sometimes it just, I don't know, it didn't really feel right. And it actually took me until just recently to fully understand why. And, whenever I would read or consume media, I found, watching more media that was focused on LGBT characters and stories resonated more with me. And what I ended up kind of actually realizing about myself is I would call myself on the ace spectrum, demi-romantic, all that kind of stuff. And, I could see certain romances easier with kind of a bit of like a wall between myself and them. But I also got to explore my own, feelings and thoughts, especially like within like the realm of being ace. Serena is very much kind of a character who has that journey of, learning what other types of love are. And like, even though she may not have a romantic partner or anything like that, there's still very much like, we kind of do live in a society where, it's all about the end romance, that is like the be all end all of what people should want in this world. And so while I do have there is a side story of romance, I wanted to make sure that there was also a story about somebody who, finds other types of love, whether it's familial love or the love of friendship, and it's just as fulfilling. So yeah, I just really wanted to kind of explore, while as I said, I found more resonance within, LGBT romances of the ones that I was willing to write about. But I also got to write a lot about, a bit of my experience as an ace individual. And
when you say ace, do you mean asexual?
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't. I identify as asexual and demi-romantic. And,
hey, good for you.
Well, thank you. I find it unfortunately nowadays, we don't really have like a lot of very positive ace representation. It's a lot of erasure.
Or if any.
Exactly. Yeah. And so...
Have you spoken publicly about your story?
Not a lot. As I said, this is something that I have been struggling with this for years. I go out, I date, I think I'm supposed to do these things. And every time I went out, I was just like a ball of anxiety. And I just the minute I agreed to do something, even if I liked the person, I immediately regretted it. And I was like, why is that? Why can't I, make these connections, even with people I am at least aesthetically attracted to? And so, having, getting to see a few instances of ace representation, it's been very refreshing. And I want to kind of add to that, especially within the fantasy realm, because so far I haven't really been seeing a lot of that. And I'm a huge fantasy nerd, huge mythology nerd. And I wanted to kind of have it be that okay, with the characters that are in my book series, yes, almost all of them belong to some denomination of, the LGBTQ plus community. But this is very, very much a fantasy. This is a story. It's not everything about their identity as, a member of the LGBT community. it is these types of people having these types of adventures.
And a new twist on Greek mythology. How so? How does that play out? A new twist.
So, yeah, I actually had a lot of fun creating this. So obviously we do start with the idea of, of Greek myth. And how I kind of did it is I basically gave them a boss, in the sense of there is somebody above them that has at least created them. And they used to be, all the people who are gods originally were human. And they were kind of chosen to become gods to be like kind of peacemakers. But as we know from Greek mythology, at least first time around, they messed a lot of things up. They're human, they're petty, they're gonna make mistakes. And so this is how they got punished with their mortality and having to be reborn over and over and over again. But what is really kind of interesting for me that I had a lot of fun doing is this concept of realms, which this book is the first in a series called Realms of Rebirth. And what it is that this kind of bigger power, we'll call it the creator for now, basically saw that there was way too much like conflict between all these different races, whether they're humans, centaurs, fae, merfolk, all this kind of stuff. And it basically kind of figured out that like humans, unfortunately, were kind of the most prone to conflict, unfortunately. And in not wanting to destroy anything, it kind of separated us all into these different realms. So you have like the first realm where all these mythological, fantastic creatures continue to live. You have the second realm, which is the world that we live in. And then the third realm is that of Olympia, the realm of the gods. But since then, there's been a lot of misinformation that's going to happen that our main characters are going to have to uncover. There are secrets and basically some really terrible revelations that need to happen in order for them to realize why the system that they are working in right now does not work. And so, yeah, we have these characters who are villains, but as the story progresses, you're going to question, maybe they've got a point. Maybe the way that the gods rule is really not the best way to go about things. So yeah, with the, I know I'm probably kind of trying to be like a little vague, but also give you a bit more understanding of this world.
Random question for you.
Yes.
Have you seen Carnival Row?
I actually haven't. No, I've been meaning to. It's been on my list. And that's the one with, what's his name? Orlando Bloom, correct?
Yes. Yeah. When you said the word fae, there are fae, like, I guess it's what's the word I'm looking for? A race, I guess?
Yeah.
So they meant, there's that in that series. And Season 2 is coming out in 2022 at some point. Ooh, it's really well done. I highly recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Ooh, that sounds good. Well, if we're going to put out recommendations, I'll also mention American Gods was very much a inspiration for my work, obviously. So if you haven't watched it yet, it's quite good. Based
American
on the
Gods, yeah. I think two or three seasons.
Yeah, I think about 3 seasons or something like that.
Yeah. Is the genesis of Eyes of the Eternal? Did this happen back in high school for you?
It actually did. I started writing this back in high school, so very, very long time ago, unfortunately for me. And it was very different. I think, when I was in high school, it was like late 90s, early 2000s, and everybody back then wanted to be the next J.K. Rowling, not so much anymore, understandably. But I was writing it originally for a younger audience. And I do remember, I wrote like probably the first 4 or 5 chapters for like an English assignment for like a creative writing course or something like that. Didn't get a great grade on it, I'll be honest. But, I still loved the idea. And as time went on, I went to school for professional writing and then screenwriting later on. And, it kind of got lost in the shuffle for a while. I brought it back out, tried to polish it off. And then I learned about Percy Jackson and I was like, well, my life's over. And luckily, yes, obviously, Rick Riordan, he has, created quite a lovely, different take on Greek mythology. And it's a great introduction for kids. But after finding out about this, I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, I'm older now. I have different stories that I want to tell. And, it's not to say that other people can't write about Greek mythology. We have so many vampire books out there. It's all about the execution. So, I decided, okay, I'm going to make my characters older. I'm going to explore more mature themes and subjects. And with Greek mythology, it's kind of almost expected, So, while the genesis definitely happened in high school with, coming up with like these little concepts of focusing on Greek mythology, it really didn't fully explode and actually fully flesh itself out probably until like 2010. I actually ended up going to Greece and Turkey and visited a lot of these like mythological sites like the Acropolis or Ephesus and, these places that still exist where the ruins of this ancient society, still linger, it was just absolutely breathtaking. Going to Delos in particular was quite interesting. And kind of sad because, you saw just the remnants of what used to be there. And, it's a little heartbreaking, but it's also very beautiful.
This title, Eyes of the Eternal, is there a story behind this particular title?
So, yeah. Originally, I guess I could probably give this little spoiler away. When I was in university, I took a class on astronomy. And in that class, I learned about the concept that, we actually have 3 North Stars, but because of how the Earth kind of wobbles on its axis, and it takes like hundreds of thousands and millions of years or whatever, it will change as time goes on. So right now we're on Polaris, but it will change eventually to either like Vega or Thuban. And I just kind of grabbed onto this idea of having these kind of, these 3 stars as almost like satellites that kind of almost record everything. And then the idea came that we'd have kind of a corresponding item on Earth that would be this like reservoir, is that the right word I'm looking for? Or of information of like the world's history. And obviously it has some answers to some of the mysteries down the line. So yeah, that's kind of where this idea of like these eyes of the eternal, that these constant stars that would watch down and, see everything. Originally,
so they're the eyes.
Yeah, they're the eyes.
3 eyes.
Now, though, originally, I actually had it, the title originally was Eyes of the Watchtower. And then I did not realize that was, there was something to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want that association because that's definitely not where I'm going with this. So hence the change. Fear, morphing into adrenaline, Quinn wound back his free hand and delivered a solid punch to Harold's chin. The ghoul fell back, releasing him as Harold's companions looked on in disbelief. Quinn's fist connecting with the ghost's transparent form had stunned them into silence. Harold staggered to his feet. He, Jimmy, and Rosa advanced on Quinn, who stumbled back, frantically looking for a way out. Just as the 3 were closing in, a new voice echoed across the cavern. "That's enough, you vultures." The 3 apparitions shrank back, allowing Quinn to fall backward. He was unsure of where this newcomer had appeared, but grateful nonetheless. Quinn's rescuer stood solid in contrast to his ghostly assailants. The former's shock of black hair slipped away from his face in a stylish coif. Quinn blinked in surprise. Standing before him was the mysterious stranger he had seen at Cedar Hills just before Marvin's death. He hadn't gotten this close a look at him before, but he was so strikingly beautiful it would be impossible to forget his face. The young man's ice blue eyes glared daggers at specters. His sleek attire of black slacks and fashionable gray sweater would not have looked out of place on the cover of GQ magazine. In fact, the man looked as though he could be a cover model himself. Chiseled features, a piercing gaze, full mouth, and the kind of body that people spend hours at the gym hoping to achieve. Quinn hoped he wasn't blushing like an idiot, but the characteristic burning of his cheeks told him that his body had betrayed him. "Jared," Harold wheezed, "we didn't know he was with you." "And that should make a difference," Jared challenged. "Did you ever stop to think what a mortal would be doing here with his flesh still attached?" "We're sorry, my lord. We promise it won't happen again," Rosa pleaded. "Damn straight it won't. If it does, all three of you will find yourselves at the bottom of the Phlegion faster than you can say Tartarus. Now get out of my sight," he bellowed, throwing out his arm in the direction of the cavern's entrance. With an anguished wail, the three specters vanished, like ashes cast into the wind.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm Justin Ling, author of Missing from the Village. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hot Docs 2022, queer documentaries, explosive subjects, and Canadian comedy legends. April 28th to May 8th. In person in Toronto and streaming nationally, coast to coast to coast. So no matter where you are in Canada, you can be part of this year's festival, where you can see some LGBTQ documentaries like My Old School, from queer actor Alan Cummings. Framing Agnes, an all-star cast of transgender artists, tell the story of a young trans woman who entered a sex disorder study in 1958, from award-winning trans filmmaker Chase Joint. Boylesque, about an 82-year-old drag queen performing in communist Poland. Queer, my friends. A South Korean filmmaker documents her best friend as he comes of age, realizing his sexual identity as a gay man. Hot Docs 2022, queer documentaries, explosive subjects, and Canadian comedy legends. April 28th to May 8th. In person in Toronto and streaming nationally. For more information, hotdocs.ca.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So you have an interesting background when it comes to some of the jobs that you've held, one of them being an actor stand-in. So talk to me about being an actor stand-in. What does that entail?
So I wish I could say that it was like a really interesting story, like experience. I mean, it was definitely different. Mm-hmm. It was when after I graduated from university, I went to Humber, and there it was like a graduate certificate for television writing and producing. And we produced like a TV show, and of course I can't remember the name of it. I feel like it was kind of like an actor's studio kind of thing, where our teacher, who had been in like been in the business, would basically call his friends in and we do interviews for them. And, basically being a stand-in for that was pretty simple, because like it was basically we were being called in so they could figure out the lighting. And so we would be sitting in these chairs, as me and this other guy would be sitting in these chairs, and they'd, do the whole thing where they'd do the whole lighting, figure out all this kind of stuff. And like, it was very different. And I was just like, okay, that's, it was an experience. I was kind of hoping to, like, as I said, when we first signed up to do all these different jobs, you sign up for a bunch of them. And at the time, I was more focused on writing anyway. So like all the production side, I wasn't as interested in, but everybody had to kind of take part. So I put in like, yeah, I'll be a stand-in. I didn't really understand what that entailed. But yeah, I had to be there like really early in the morning, just so I could sit in a chair and have them light me to figure out how everything was going. So yeah, it was an experience.
And take orders.
Very much so, yeah.
Stay still. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about Disney Pictures and Universal Studios. What do you do for these companies?
So how it works is, I work, I'm a freelancer that works for Deluxe. So Deluxe is a giant, it's a post-production company. There's actually a studio, I believe, in Toronto. And so they do a lot of post-production there, which is whether it's like audio mixing or special effects, all that kind of stuff. I know that for a fact that Guillermo del Toro loves to work there and does a lot of his stuff for his movies.
Doesn't he live in Toronto or?
I don't know if he lives in Toronto. He likes Hamilton a lot. He's filmed a lot in Hamilton, which is right next door. Like I live in Burlington. So yeah, like he films a lot in Hamilton. He loves it there apparently. And so with Deluxe, so I work as a freelancer for them, and I work for both the US and the UK offices, and I work as an audio description writer. So what happens is that they give me a project, and I've done several projects for Disney or Universal Studios or like. And what my job is that I take a movie and I get to watch it, and I have to write the description for the visually impaired in between the dialogue. So like you've probably watched, television, and they say like, oh, this program includes audio description for the visually impaired. That's my job. So it's kind of neat because you're basically taking a visual medium and turning it into an audiobook. So yeah, it's definitely a different kind of writing. There's a lot of rules and regulations, especially for Disney. Disney it's kind of fun in that respect because you're like, okay, so especially because like a lot of their older stuff sometimes will have like, like they don't want you to mention smoking if you can avoid it or stuff like that. So you definitely end up having to ask a lot of crazy questions. And especially for like not so much Disney, but like I've done other pictures, like, and it's usually catalog stuff, older movies. But I've also done television shows. One of my first jobs, I believe, was like an Ali G movie.
Okay. The comedian.
Oh yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I had to ask some of the worst questions for this because like I'm talking to like everything's through email, and I'm just like, so there's this scene where it is implied that he is jerking somebody off or whatever, and you're just like, oh my god, like what do I say that? You don't see it, but it's implied. And she's like, yeah, no, you can basically say that. And I'm like, okay then, this is my job.
So Ali G, the comedian, is giving a hand job.
Yeah, it's very much trying to figure out how to like, or like even just asking like, do I use the word penis or do I like use something else? And they're like, no, you use the correct terminology. I'm like, okay.
Wow. Earlier you talked about going to various countries to research Eyes of the Eternal. Why was that important for you to actually go to these places?
So I'll be honest in the sense, like, I have not traveled very much. Like, before I went to Greece and Turkey, I had been to, like, basically, I think Los Angeles. And that was, like, basically it, because I had gone there for pitch fests and stuff like that when I was, like, trying to sell like a TV show or a movie script or whatever. And, you know, when I was writing Eyes of the Eternal, I was kind of struggling at some points. I'll be honest that, like, description was not always the best thing, that, like, the thing that I was best at. I felt more comfortable writing dialogue, bit of action, that kind of stuff. So, you know, I didn't really feel that, like, pictures would do it justice. I kind of needed to feel it. Plus, at the time, I was kind of, you know, struggling a bit with motivation. And I was like, okay, let's explore the world. Let's actually see these places. And, you know, I wanted to kind of use it as this, you know, basically like an experience to get me out of any writer's block that I was experiencing at the time. And I'd never traveled on my own at that point either. So, you know, I was like 24 and just was so excited to, like, go through, just, you know, experience this place. And, you know, being on my own, being able to, you know, not worry about other people, or at least friends. Like, I was part of a tour group, but I was on my own in that respect. And there was really kind of something magical about being in those places. As I said, Delos in particular, they have like this whole thing about how with Delos, it's this sacred island, if you're not aware. And it is kind of like, it was the multicultural or multi-religious epicenter of the ancient world. So not only were there, like, temples to the Greek gods, there were temples to Egyptian gods as well. So that was just something really, I don't know, there was something really fascinating about all of it. And then getting to see, there's like the Lion Terrace, which is these statues, like, and some are in better condition than others, I guess, of these, like, lion statues that are facing what would have been this sacred lake. The lake is now dried up. It's a very, you know, kind of dusty area, but there still are these remnants of what used to be there. And, you know, having this kind of experience, walking these places that I was going to have my characters walk through, you know, I was able to give more of a realistic expression of it, especially when it came to description, because, as I said, I struggled with it, but it was a wonderful experience.
Eyes of the Eternal, this is part of a trilogy. Do you have the other two stories, the other two novels mapped out?
Pretty much for the first, yeah. So the second book, which will be called Lives of the Dead, is going to be taking place mostly in the underworld. So we're going to be getting a lot of, it's going to be a lot more mythological in that sense. We're kind of mixing a bit of, you know, the Greek underworld, as well as, like, you're going to probably get shades of, like, Dante's Inferno. I'm really looking forward to that, because, like, as much as I love fantasy, I love dark fantasy. I love kind of getting into these, you know, weird places that have kind of, you know, taken root in my imagination. Pardon? Sorry?
Something like Constantine.
Yeah. No, I do enjoy, like, another one is The Sandman, if you've read those comic books.
I have not. No.
Oh, well, actually there's a Netflix series coming out about it. So, yeah, if you haven't read those, you can always check out the series. I think it's coming out in the next couple months.
Are you looking to hopefully get this on the screen, whether it's, you know, on the big screen or on TV or something?
I would love that. Absolutely. As, like, I'm very much a person who enjoys storytelling in, like, so many different types of mediums. And as I've mentioned before, like, I went to school for television writing and producing. And while I haven't written a teleplay or script for this particular story, I could easily see it as, something like a Netflix series, whether it was live action or maybe even animated in like a Castlevania kind of sense, As I said, like I'm always really excited to kind of expand my horizons, whether it be graphic novels, ebooks, that kind of, not ebooks, sorry, audiobooks, and, just kind of find new ways to tell stories.
And for yourself, is there a takeaway that you want your audiences to come away with after reading Eyes of the Eternal? Is there a takeaway?
I think, like, overall, this is, like, the first book in particular is a story of, basically coming to terms with one's own worth. We have a lot where our main character, Quinn, questions, his worth as like, he feels like a very ordinary person. And then to be thrown into this role of, being this incarnation of a Greek goddess, or a Greek god at this point, and feeling like he has to live up to these expectations. And while there is like, obviously that anxiety, there is also this sense of found family, of people who will support you. Which I do believe, it's very much a, something that the LGBT plus community, really does latch on to. And I love the concept of found family. So I think, if, as I said, to say like a full on takeaway, I guess it would be kind of to trust in others, to let other people lift you up, but also to believe in your own worth, and, work past your anxieties and stuff like that. It's, as someone who is very anxious themselves, it is something to be able to, take that, internalize it, understand why you feel that way, but also to, find a healthy way to reach out for help when you need it, but also grab on to the confidence that you can have.
Here's a random question for you. I've had on a number of authors on the show, and I like to ask this question because, hey, maybe, some authors are a little bit bonkers. I don't know. So I ask this question. When you're writing a novel, and you're maybe in the early stages and you're coming up with the characters, and then you start writing the story, do you find that some of the characters take on a life of their own and they start dictating how the story should go? Did that happen to you with Eyes of the Eternal?
There's definitely been, things that have grown out of what I had originally planned, for certain. I'll admit, I'm a bit of a control freak. I like to have things just so. I'm the kind of person who has, like, when I'm plotting something out, I have my color coordinated Post-it notes and like my cork board, all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out, okay, this is like the logical progression for this character's arc, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like there's definitely times where, all of a sudden there'll be this kind of like, I don't know, this urge where it's like, okay, no, this character has to have this moment of, being problematic or being, making this terrible decision because, as much as we love to see like, characters, thrive and be, these, I don't know, like not beacons of moral superiority or anything like that, but like to, be someone we can look up to. I think it's actually even more important to have our characters be very human and to make mistakes and all that kind of stuff so we can see people growing. So while, I might start off with like, okay, I want this character to be like ridiculously likable and I want, everybody to like him and I hate to, make him make a dumb decision or whatever. And, as the story progresses, you realize, no, do you know what? This is a flaw of theirs. This is what they're going to do. And yeah, so it definitely has like, the story has evolved in ways that I wasn't really expecting.
Are you content with the final product?
I am. I'm very proud of like the work that's been done. I've worked with some really lovely people over the years. My best friend, she's kind of been a huge cheerleader, has worked through several plot holes or issues like that. The people at Dollhouse have been lovely and just really, very supportive. And my cover artist, Hoang Lap, he's amazing, just beautiful artwork and just been a pleasure to work with. So yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with like the outcome, and I'm just looking forward to growing the series and having it, spread out and have people enjoy it, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Well said, well done, well written. G.E. White, thank you for being on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Mark. I didn't know Marvin's grandkids were into cosplay, Quinn commented as he continued to stare at the stranger across the courtyard. Marvin doesn't have any grandkids, Jeremy replied, still concentrating on the chess pieces in front of him. Then who's that? Quinn asked, gesturing with his chin to the dark-haired visitor. Jeremy followed Quinn's gaze and frowned. What are you talking about? There's no one there. The words hit Quinn in the chest like a sledgehammer. The other young man was there, plain as day. Quinn was sure of it. But, dude, you are losing it. Jeremy picked up a bishop from the board, using it to take one of Quinn's pawns. If I were you, I'd seriously consider asking Salazar to up your meds. Quinn pulled his feet up to his seat, hugging his legs closer to his chest. He glanced over at Marvin, and sure enough, the young man was still there. Almost as if feeling Quinn's gaze upon him, the stranger looked up, his blue eyes locking with Quinn's gray ones. The stranger gave Quinn a rakish smile that caused a fluttery feeling to ripple through his stomach and his face to flush with heat. The stranger returned his attention to Marvin. The elderly man smiled up at his mystery visitor as if he was greeting an old friend. The stranger leaned forward, whispering something in the old man's ear. Marvin's smile grew. The young man then turned and walked away, around the corner of the building and out of sight. Once he could no longer see the cloaked figure, Quinn looked over at Marvin. The old man was slumped in his chair and appeared to be asleep, save for the fact he didn't stir. He had just had company. How did he fall asleep so quickly? Something feels off. Marv? Quinn called from across the courtyard. Marvin remained entirely still. Dread started to creep up Quinn's spine. Marv! Quinn felt his voice crack as he sharpened his tone, trying to get Marvin's attention. Geez, Quinn, let him sleep, Jeremy scolded. He's not sleeping, Quinn insisted, worry evident in his voice. Quinn's voice attracted a couple of nurses who now rushed to the still man. Mr. Jacobs, one of the nurses asked, lightly shaking Marvin's shoulder. The gentlewoman's face drained of color as she received no reaction. Jenny, I need you over here, she hissed to the older nurse. In a matter of minutes, several orderlies ushered the other patients indoors. The doctors who followed placed a white sheet over the now deceased Marvin in preparation for the morgue.
Eyes of the Eternal is available wherever you get your favorite books. And on Amazon.ca, it has a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars.
I'm Brian Bradley, author of Outrageous Misfits, female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife, Lori Russellidi. You are listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us. And of course our artists and the things that we do globally. And and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, follow me on socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including audible.com and iHeartRadio. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we live in days of making dreams come true. So believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.